So we mentioned that we can simplify a ratio by thinking of it as if it were a fraction. How do we mean? Well, with a ratio, say, suppose that we're considering a school where there are 250 students and 15 teachers. We want to write a simplified ratio of teachers to students. So teachers to students, that'll be 15 to 250. But we want a simplified ratio. What does that mean? That means if it were a fraction, it would be in lowest terms. I'm used to simplifying things that look like fractions, so to simplify this, I'm going to write it in fraction notation. I have 15 over 250. I notice that these each have a factor of 5. 15 is 5 times 3. 250, well, 25 is 5 times 5. So 250 must be 5 times 50. Now I can cancel out a factor of 5. I'm left with 3 to 50. And that's how I would report my answer. In fraction notation, or using the word to, or in the notation with the colon. The simplified ratio of students to teachers is 3 to 50. Now, a couple of other things to bear in mind when we're simplifying ratios. A simplified ratio involves two whole numbers. If I told you a certain recipe calls for 2½ cups of water for every 1 cup of pasta, and asked you to write a simplified ratio of water to pasta, well, the original ratio would be water, 2½ to 1 cup of pasta. So in fraction notation, that would be 2½ over 1. Oh, hey, that looks like a fraction with a fraction in it. That's no good, right? To simplify a ratio with a fraction in it, understand this main fraction bar as division. So in this example, we'll understand this as 2½ divided by 1. If I'm going to do any multiplication or division to a mixed number, I want to make it an improper fraction. So this is 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5 halves, and 1 is 1 whole. Taking the reciprocal of 1 doesn't really change anything, but that's a step. So the simplified ratio, then, is 5 halves, or 5 to 2, or 5:2. We can also encounter decimals in this context. Say if we wanted to simplify the ratio 3.8 to 0.24. Well, in fraction notation, that's 3.8 over 0.24. The easiest way to make this denominator a whole number is to multiply it by a power of 10. I'm going to multiply the numerator and denominator by, of course, the same power of 10, so that they're both whole numbers. Here I have hundredths, here I just have tenths. I need to multiply both by 100. I need to multiply the denominator by 100 to get a whole number. I have to multiply the numerator by the same thing. And I can think of multiplying by 100 as moving the decimal point. Decimal point in the denominator moves 1, 2 places to the right, so I've got just 24. In the numerator, 1, 2 places to the right, so in the numerator I need a 0 placeholder. It looks like in this example I can continue to simplify, because I think that 4 goes into both of these numbers. 24 is 4 times 6. 380, I need to write out the division. 4 goes into 3 not at all, into 38 9 times. 9 times 4 is 36. 4 goes into 20 5 times. with nothing left over. So 380 is 4 times 95. Cancel those. 6 and 95 have nothing in common, since 3 doesn't go into 95. So my simplified ratio is 95 over 6, or 95 to 6, or 95:6. Alright, I'm going to give you a few of these to try. Simplify each of these ratios. Pause the video and try this now. Alright, so the first one only involves whole numbers. So I will need to just find common factors of 80 and 32. The thing I spot right away is that 8 goes into both of them. 80 is obviously a multiple of 8. 32 shows up in the 8 row of my multiplication table. So 80 is 8 times 10. 32 is 8 times 4. Cancel the 8. And now I notice that 10 and 4 still have a common factor. 10 is 2 times 5. 4 is 2 times 2. And that's all that's left. So I'm left with 5 over 2, or 5 to 2. All right, second example. I have 3.5 over 1 1/4. And I'm going to choose to understand this main fraction bar as division. So I'll have 3.5 divided by 1 1/4. Rewriting each of these as mixed numbers, I'll get 7/2 divided by 5/4. Rewrite that as multiplication. And I think it's easy to see that we're going to have 7 times 2 times 2 over 2 times 5. Cancel out one of the 2's, and that's all we can do. So 7 times 2 is 14. We'll have 14 to 5. And finally, we have 1.25 over 3.5. So what do I need to multiply each number by to get a whole number? I need to multiply 1.25 by a 1 followed by 2 zeros. 3.5, a 1 followed by 1 0. The bigger one is a 1 followed by 2 zeros. And again, I need to multiply both by the same thing because it's a fraction. So I'll have 125 over 350. Looking at these, I think they're both multiples of 25. Just counting out quarters, I see I can get 25, 50, 75, 100, 125. Maybe 350 I need to write out the division. 25 goes into 35 once. It goes into 100 4 times. So 25 times 14. Cancel the 25's. I'm left with 5 over 14. So that's 5 to 14. One other thing that we need to be aware of in simplifying ratios, and that is a ratio always compares two numbers. So for example, if we have the ratio 4 to 1, or we could write it 4:1, or we could write it 4 over 1, but not just 4. Why? Because 4 is just one number. We don't know what it compares to. If a ratio simplifies to have denominator 1, keep it. Don't write it as a whole number. Because again, a ratio doesn't represent a number. It represents a relationship between two numbers.